1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
You'd be surprised, a lot of the patients who present to us with infection in their feet, the infection would have started several days before. Now, the interesting thing is, neuropathy usually goes hand in hand with peripheral arterial disease. So these patients lose the sensation to feel. Now, they may have the ability to have crude touch or general sensation, but that fine sensation, for instance, when a needle sticks them or a thumbtack sticks them, they would lose that sensation.
Correct.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
WESN.
Welcome, this is Talking Point Show. Michael Small here, switching things up a little bit. Ashraf can't join me today, but I'm pleased to announce that I am joined by someone who's no stranger to the program. We are happy to have Avenel Hector Joseph of Is There Not a Cause? Avenel, good morning. Welcome to Talking Point.
Good morning to you, Sean. Thank you so very much for the opportunity. And as an organization, we are always thankful for these opportunities. If we don't get these platforms, if we don't have these opportunities, we are winking in the dark. We are doing stuff, and no one knows what we're doing, except, of course, the persons whose life we are directly impacting. But we want the wider community to know what they're doing, Sean. We also want to bring awareness of why we do it. We're not just doing things for doing things' sake. We are doing things because there is a vacuum, there's a void, there's a gap, a lot of social injustices and inequity and lack in our society. And that is why ITNAC has been in operation for the last 24 years. So we're thankful for this opportunity.
Well, what the reason why I thought, let me try and reach out to organizations like yourself to have a conversation is I noticed a trend that bothered me, because I'm not someone that goes out frequently. I don't go to bars anymore, Lime anymore. But the few times that I have gone out, sometimes to the same place, there will be different people every time asking, begging for some assistance, for sometimes for money, sometimes for food. The degree of which I'm running into individuals in this state, whether they are in genuine need of help or they are individuals who might be trying to, pull a fast one, regardless, I just thought that the amount of people in that situation, it started to make me wonder just how bad things potentially have gotten, because it doesn't necessarily say, oh, you see one beggar, things are automatically bad everywhere. But the amount, it could be the same location, but different people, it got me concerned. So as someone who's on the ground, I wanted to find out, what have you been seeing here in TNT with regards to people reaching out, asking for assistance?
What I want to start with saying is, has those that we have and pay rather hefty salaries, those who saw it fit in the midst of a vast amount of our citizens suffering on both sides, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, saw it fit and morally okay to take huge salary increases while a huge amount of our population have been in dire straits coming down post COVID. So those who want to make it a last 9 months, last 11 months, then you're being very disingenuous. And I'm on the ground. And I have to wonder, you have made that observation as a citizen. Has those that we have charged with the responsibility to govern taken note of that? So over the years, I have said, the people who don't understand problems can't fix the problems. So then we have the whole issue, whether we want to ignore it or not, whether we want to politicize it, whether we want to make it about corruption in CPEP. The mother who has called me, I overslept this morning at 6:39 this morning because she's getting evicted. She is a former CPEP worker, and I have been trying to find a place for her that is affordable, that is accessible for her children to go to school. Those citizens that you see there, many of us would like to believe so that we can numb our conscience, so that for political expediency, we can turn a blind eye to what is happening. They must be just begging for begging, so there will always be those. There have been those people doing that since time immemorial, faking a limb, doing all different types of things. However, we are faced with a situation. Two of the persons who reached out to us for help this week, I drew it to my attention, the attention of my team members, that one of them was a very, very generous donor to the organization. And the other one, she would give, she would bake bread, whatever it is. These people are calling to say to me that they do not have anything in their house. Now, in the context of people who lack in poverty, I do not have anything in my house does not mean I don't want to eat what it has. It doesn't mean I have food in the fridge and I eat that yesterday or for the last 2 days. I don't want to eat it again. Sean, a mother with a 12-year-old daughter, walking between Talpa and Rima, looking for a pavilion to sleep in. Our members, mind you, we are not state-funded. We were called by a government agency, charged with responsibility. They need news now to look after the welfare of the children. They would always call our organization because we offer a very unique facility that we don't just take the child, we take the parent. We try to keep the family together. We don't get any money, we don't get it. But people call us, especially Abner night, because Abner will always answer her phone, which I don't mind. This is my calling. And more, Sean, people are being locked out, people are being evicted, and you can't really, there are some unreasonable landlords, like the one in Point 2 one day after the rent was due, after she raised from 1,500 to 25, she locked the door on the 16th when we went. Those are extreme situations, but there's some landlords, you can't blame them, Sean. They've been going the distance 2-3 months to a CPEP work, and you haven't worked since last year. You know what's the state of your liver. So yes, it is very bad. We've got to call it as it is a society, and we've got to do something quick. And we've got to put some kind of emergency. I don't know.
Well, you brought up something.
I'm not seeing this, Sean.
You brought up something interesting, because I also just started to have the thought, to what extent did the people on the margins of society, those who are most at risk of any sort of negative economic shock, you know, anything like what happened with the cost of food a couple of years ago, post-COVID, did we recover enough for the people on the margins, or were we going towards recovery, or has it been an ongoing battle even since then? Because I know certain industries in the country never really caught their breath, so to speak, and are still having to deal with that post-COVID situation, never got back to 2019 levels of operations and financial security. What has it been like for your organization and the people who look to you? Has it been a constant fight ever since COVID was over, but the challenges for you and organizations like you, did they show signs of being relieved?
Sean, I'm saying this, and I'm my prayer price fit, but as a Christian, I find it hard not to hate some of these people who govern us, because they call us, they're wicked and they're indifferent to the sufferings of the people that create voter banks to put them in power so they can live the kind of lives that they live and drive Rovers and drive all of these things. Have a nice car, have a good life. You didn't take up poverty. But for crying out loud, boy, oh God, boy. Think about the people at the bottom who suffered. The mother who might have a $100. And if she get 10 items, 7 items, a mother who have 4 children, time you buy 1 pack of macaroni, 1 pack of pasta, that is a day. A 2 kg bag of rice, how much time that lasted? These people are colors, these people are different. They can't tell me otherwise. They can speak rhetoric from their platforms. But when it comes to governing from a place of heart and compassion, by now we should have some kind of thing. I don't care how much people I see lining up in stadiums for jobs, unless it is factored into real time, where the needs of citizens, we can't have low-income housing when low-income people cannot afford it. We play what we have, you pin and we had and call it rain. Again, we tutor me lips and we had to call it lipstick. The situation is bad. This is not me being emotional. This is not me being sensational. Yes, I am emotional because when we only have 3 facilities, we are struggling as an organization, doing brunch. We have a brunch Monday to raise funds, doing this, doing that. We set up the city outreach shifts, snatch those that have already been homeless so they could get a place to bathe, get a meal, get some clothes, get some counseling. We're doing all of this. Many other organizations doing this, and we're doing this because listen, there's some auntie somewhere see a need in her community, meeting the need. How many women are stuck in an economic situation? It is more than just what we see. If I'm in an abusive situation, I am going to stay that man giving me half a bread. A woman spoke to the Bankers Association yesterday who came to do a donation to one of our facilities. They stay because when they're fearful of what's happening, they have no CPEP for them, no UAP. You think what you want in those programs. Yes, they're wrong. They should not have been. They should be temporary fixes and they should be this, but they are not there now. And a vacuum exists. And those on the other side, don't come and look here. get no political points because, right, people been suffering in this country for a long while. It is now becoming more visible because they are coming out. They don't have no choice. They are coming out because they can't stop. Time somebody comes to a show and they need 3-4 days. People say, that's happening in Trinidad. What else? We don't want to believe that's happening in Trinidad because we have to then think differently, act differently. A demand would be made. Why don't we have community food banks? In 2010, 2011, that's 15 years ago, our organization made a proposal, a fixed proposal to the government. Let us set up community banks.
Now, I want to make...
They would serve...
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your point.
Right, so they would serve in times of disaster response because... So we could give people more than mattresses when a flood happens or whatever disaster, fire. If no disaster happens, we will have collection of agencies who work together, NGOs on the ground, the smaller NGOs. So let's just say the food is going to cycle out in March. There's no disaster by February. We have this list of people, we cycle out the food. We get the different companies. Carib have Smolter trying to take that, have a little Smolter. Different companies have different things who make it market, and they get attacked right off. I met extensively with the previous Minister of Social Development. You know, she kept sharing my heart, making suggestions, and we are committed to do the work, not even for salary. I ask them to be no consultant. They get 40,000, 100,000, 200,000. Hey, listen, I love my country. I'm going to do this. We are not given an air. And we're not putting all the responsibility on the government. We're saying that the government needs to take civil society seriously for the work that we do. And let's bring together what Mr. Manning called the 3 spears, right? He had a great idea, it was never fleshed out. And I talk about it all the time. Bring the government together, bring the NGOs together, bring the state together, and let's see how we can develop and encourage more social corporate responsibility, like all the oil companies doing their thing. Let's spread it out throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We have what it takes for us to build a more social and equitable society, but somebody has to care, somebody has to want to do it, somebody who has the power to drive the policies, Sean, and enact the policies beyond political rhetoric to show, but I mean, like, actually do it.
I just wanted to clarify because people would listen to what you're saying and they might not fully listen, they might half listen depending on what they assume you're talking about. And you haven't necessarily mentioned either political party by name, but I just want to make the point because you did technically make it, but I know people will mishear it or not hear it. You're not blaming one political party, you're blaming...
We've had a long-standing problem.
The style of leadership regardless of who's in office. Right? I just want to make sure people understand that is what you're saying.
Beyond the paper, beyond political rhetoric, beyond campaign shenanigans, we have not really seen from 1956 to present a style of governance that shows that people first, that we're going to do policies that really, so I'll give you an example. And of course, I'm going to say upon I would have a natural bias to 1986-91 because my mother was part of that government. But in terms of how we do things, so I believe what Mr. Robinson had to do was necessary. The country was in a bad place economically. We needed to it's like you have gangrene in your foot and then you ignore it, you get his doctor, you say, listen, you got to chop off that foot because if you chop off the foot, you're going to die. So you can have a doctor that says, listen, I'm going to chop off your foot because you're going to die. You can have a doctor that says, and I think that was Mr. Robinson's downfall. I mean, he came from that firm thing, but if we can have conversations with people and how we do things that make us so that we compassionate. So, okay, let's just say CPEP. We got in on a platform XYZ. We have a conversation with people. Listen, this model of operation, business model, it cannot be sustainable. Ting, whatever. We found a lot of corruption. We are going to have to stop the program while we do an audit. But we're going to hold the program for 3 months, 6 months. And we are going to look at how we can phase you guys, train you guys, make you all form into some smaller companies. We're going to come back to you in 6 months. But in the meantime, we're going to give you $300 a month food card, right? You know our politicians just blow that money in more time. 300 would be equivalent of like a 2 massive bags for the month. But at least you have your basic rice, your flour, your sugar, If they were to speak to people like us on the ground, we can tell them solution, but we're not important, so we never call to the table. And it is what it is. I am angry. I have seen it for what it is, and I do what I can from where I stand, and I will continue to do what I can. You understand? So I'm saying things need to be done. We have a lot of corrupt stuff. We have a lot of people who benefit, some of the contractors, this one family, and it happens all along, right? That nepotism, who in politics, they get their family. And okay, but what comes down to the citizen? We are here where we are at today, on the ground, having to work triple time in a country that has seen trillions and trillions and trillions of oil dollars pass through. And we make millionaires and billionaires every cycle of governance, right? But John and Tom and Jane and Jenny down at the bottom. That's why less and less of our population are voting and are interested in the politics, because as far as they're concerned, they're simple minds. Listen, I go starve under mustard, I go starve under ketchup. So you have some people say, based on ethnicity, well, let me starve under my ethnicity because I'll prefer that. But how have their policies really, really impacted? And this is a conversation that Trinidadians will have to have. Trinidadians and Tobagonians have to have, especially we at the bottom. How have our voting choices, how have we called our politics? Or we just wave a flag, wear a jersey, cuss out my neighbor, and then tomorrow you and the neighbor, you just cuss out. Well, let's starving together, you know. The fellas living and them ladies living the best life. So I'm upset as a citizen. I'm puckered, I'm peeved, I'm angry, I'm hurt that in a country that has, we're not Haiti. And even Haiti is a sad story because they're well put, but we're not those countries. We boast of how much wealth we have. We go to the conferences with arrogance because we're Trinidad and Tobago, you know? But after all of that shenanigans, anybody asking our citizens, I mean, our previous one day, Prime Minister said, well, for the most part, we live good here. I've always wanted to meet him in his place and ask him, boss, who's the one you're talking about like that? For the most part, and you are the member of a parliament for one of a part of your constituency, are some of the poorest people I know because I work in that area. So this tells you there is a great divide. I say the same things on every program. There's a disconnect, there's a divide, and there's a discontent, and then there's a disdain. So the bigger these is the politicians, they're disconnected, they show disdain for the poor. And us down here, we disconnected.
Now,
people drain.
Now, I wanted to, that's the politicians, but to some extent, the rest of the wider population, you yourself have pointed out, you could do things, will it be known? And I know for a fact that a lot of well-meaning public notices, messaging, awareness campaigns, whether it's the private sector, whether it's the police service trying to warn people, don't be a victim of this crime, it just does not get out there. To what extent is the wider population, obviously if you're going through it, or if you know someone directly going through it, you have some awareness. But the wider population, how aware are the rest of Trinbago with regards to what's going on for people on the margins? Because I feel they also might fall into the trap that the politicians fall into. I don't see it. My life is, it might not be easy, but it's not necessarily brutally hard yet. So everything is kind of going okay and things will work out. So let's just keep doing what we're doing and we don't have to worry about trying to do anything new or different. What about the rest of the country's population?
Because there is a sizable population who, I don't know if it's ostrich syndrome, I don't know if they have made a decision for their own sanity, because Sean is very heavy. It's very heavy. So some people have adopted the policy where if I see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, there no be evil. I just live my life, make the best as I could. As one fella said, who they're dead. And I just live my life and I battle my kind of because I struggling too. But what has touched me among Trinidad, we say bad things about Trinidad, but what has touched me more and more in the last couple of years and has really given me hope, that has really encouraged our members, is how many people call us and say, Avi, there's a lady on my street, XYZ. I have been helping them for so long, and they list things that they've helped. Ordinary citizens, some of them minimum pay wage, some of them don't have things for themselves. But I can only do so much. I would like you all to see how you all can help them. I normally give them a hamper, you know, but this month I can't help them. More and more of our citizens are paying attention. You know what's passing there? And I saw this lady and I realized every day she's there at the same time as a little child, like she ain't working. So our citizens are paying attention. Yes, there's a sizable amount that are in denial. A sizable amount for political expediency, continuing a level of hypocrisy that behoves me to wonder if they're humans. Because for them to face what it is, whether it was in the last incarnation or in this incarnation, some humans, for me to say Trinidad and Tobago is a bad case, is an indictment against their political choices. So they will pretend. We will always have those. When it was catch up, everything good. We're just ungrateful. Look how much I think it have. Look, we're not saying the government is doing plenty. I'm not going to be the government in doing nothing, crew. What I will say is that the government needs to do much more and needs to pay attention on the ground. Don't govern as if everything is okay up to the door. No, it's not. All is not well. Rome is burning. So as I said, there are people who genuinely know, and there are people who have chosen for different reasons to become indifferent and callous. But I salute all the people who given the extra plate of food. None of they have it, but they just can't turn their heart away.
You mentioned it's not as though government isn't doing anything. So it's part of the problem that what they're spending on might not be the most effective thing, and people like yourself as part of NGOs, and you said there are many NGOs that are trying to do this work. If the government would consult with people on the ground who have that direct experience more, the aid that the government provides could be more effectively utilized, and would that potentially solve the problem or make a significant enough difference that it will, you know, start to get a solution?
Okay, so we have 41 constituencies in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Tobago has its own culture, so we have 39, but we can still all work together. Look at the different constituencies to construct what would help. Let's just say we look at one particular set of demographics. We say, you know what, within this community, having a soup kitchen would really help these people. Because a lot of people, they go into the minimum wage. Their children come home before they get home. The moms, when they come home after minimum, you see a fine chicken all day, you're tired. You're not going to cook a proper meal. So, okay, we get 2-3 moms in the community who could well cook to them a minimum wage as well. But if you look at that, we can look at childcare, something that I've been hammering in for years. Childcare is exceptionally expensive and exorbitant. And then the government has put all of these different stipulations for these centers to operate. So we're going to get a job for a lady who we rescued from domestic violence. The cheapest good childcare to her is $1,400. She's going to be working for like $2,000 something a month. That makes sense. She has children to mind. Can we set up in our community centers daycares? Get companies to deal to like zone them, because we did it already in Palo Seco, where we trained the women in agriculture, and we set up a daycare in the community center. What are the needs? What are the things that hinder people to become self-sufficient, to go back to school, and all of these things? So then also you break the cycle of women who go in with our next man to mind the other children and with more children. We need to have conversations, not thumping desk and all that sort of childish madness that happens in your house. Like, people sit down and do something called the groundswell, which we also sent a proposal in a previous incarnation, how to engage the people in the communities and to listen to what they have to say. They have task force for each constituency. What is the way forward that would help the MP in terms of his or her representation? Because most times they govern from a vacuum, they govern from a place of lack of knowledge. All of them have an aide and an advisor. I don't know what advice they give them, right? When you look over the last, say, let's say 15, 20 years, things have changed. I mean, a constituency can have a Facebook page, a WhatsApp group, there are different things. So we are in touch with people. So we don't want people falling through our cracks. Who are the bright children in our constituency as an MP who passes his common entrance? There's SEA. A child passed one of the best colleges some time ago, and we found out that child was not going to be able to take up that chore. I mean, one of the top schools. Imagine a little child, you're 11 years, they're beating this thing in their head, how important this thing is. And you study from a poor community, hungry nights, and you pass, and then you come to the cost and you can't go through. If you have people on the ground, and I am making an appeal, it ain't going to fall there, but I will keep talking till the cows come home. My last breath will be to call for injustice in this country, speak against it. The constituencies as manageable, break them up. We had village councils, active village council, people are aware, collect data, right? And there are companies that have stock we can give tax write-off. So like in America, once you have a 501c3 organization, you automatically get tax write-offs. So people are always inclined to give. We have the wealth here, Sean. We have systems that we can put in place to help people govern, to live more equitable lives. But I don't think we even want, and I'm not talking about equality, I'm talking about equitable lives, right? It would never be equal. That man is a multi-millionaire, he work hard and stuff. Okay, I'm not saying take my millions and give it to somebody.
Right.
But we can't do things to make the lives of our citizens have more dignity. But imagine they begging for a bag of food, boy.
Now,
and
one of the things, of course, crime is the second issue after the economy. But when you have people on the margins, there's always concerns. Now, a lot of people might assume crime is impacting mostly rich people. That's who the criminals are targeting. But has there been any negative impacts on your organization, your work, other organizations like yourself, and the people who you're trying to help? I mean, yes, I know domestic abuse, that is a significant impact that you highlighted, but has other aspects of crime also made helping out those on the margins, the stuff that you do, and for those people themselves, make things more difficult?
Yes. Yes, so for example, a particular community that we are putting up a project should have been finished in 2024. We are quarter through 2026 because we've had a challenge of getting workmen from out of the community. They don't want to come in, so the contractor's been going back and forth. Then, in fact, the only reason the contractor came back is because, thank God, he didn't hear about a particular killing that took place because he feels very uncomfortable and shaking the community, and we wasn't really getting the quality of work that we wanted and particular skill sets from the community. We tried to employ the guys, but some of them were not able to do it. So you have those kinds of things. You have persons who are in need in those communities. Then we have a challenge to get volunteers who want to go to drop a bag of groceries to visit with the person because they are fearful. At some of our spaces, we have to be very careful how we operate and the level of show of possessions in those spaces to not want to draw necessary attention. And remember, Sean, if you know, but we probably 97% females, and a lot of them are over 60. I myself am over 55. So we always it has never been a hindrance, but at the same time, we've got to operate at a level of caution and things because up to last Friday, we had a situation where somebody who was coming to get some help, well, to buy some stuff because we want a trip shop of a particular nationality across the ocean. Some guys, our volunteers were actually there. I literally walked off just a few minutes, walked upstairs to come back downstairs. The next thing you know, the guys on the ground with blood, they came to kill him and they hit a big stone thing. So these things, of course, it affects our volunteers. We've had a lot of traumatic experiences. So one of the persons, she took the week off. But I really want to thank God for our team and the commitment that they give, and not just us. I know a lady named Mr. Penny. She's been doing this for 30-something years, Jillian Jackson Smart. And I can go on and on and on. I get a lot of media play from time to time, but I want to be the voice of those people, Pastor Anderson Mohammed, Compassion in South. He does something called, I think, the dollar meal or something like that, where for $5 meal, he makes burgers and doubles and sell it for $1. So there are many other people throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Kamika McClutchy of Rise, and she has to work with the police to extract the victims and, go through the humiliation and the line of questions that our policemen put these women who are coming out of abusive situations. It's humiliating. So there are a lot of our citizens, and I salute them. And I wish, sometimes I see the national awards and I say, boy, you should tell me who to get the list for, Sean. And there are people down in the trenches that are making a difference and snatching men and snatching women from depravity and people who could lose their mind and end up in prison because Trinidad and Tobago is not in a good place. Spin it, flip it, and it hasn't started last. It's not been a good place for a long while. And we've got to, I don't want to say if we could break this slide because we done sliding, but we have to do something. We have to do it quick. And so that's why I keep appealing to the people on the ground whether it is across the region in Response Caribbean, where we are networking with NGOs across the region to create a sort of grassroots character model, or within our country, we are the people, and I believe that we are the ones, even with our limited resources, to really drive change. Because I don't know what the politicians are, but we have to do something. We have to do what we have to do. And I want to just salute all the people who contribute to the cause, all the companies who see the value of what we do and support us. Marriott, they give us their surplus meals, and we're able to help people, feed our volunteers. If we don't have to buy meals for our volunteers, that money can go towards things. So it's bad. Let's not try to sugarcoat it. I'm not, I am emotional, and it is an emotional issue unless you are hearted. But beyond emotions, I'm emotional because what the facts are.
Well, one of the concerns, of course, ironically, with the education system, and he brought up an example where the economic impacted someone who did the work, passed for the prestige school, and now is not able to go. Things like that has me concerned, because essentially that's the system not working for the citizen. To what extent would you have concerns that when we have situations like this and they keep compounding themselves, right? The economic reality is making it difficult for people to make headway, to try to find a way, a path to survive. I don't think all criminals are necessarily evil people. Some, they're enticed or they feel forced into a life of crime. If we continue how things are going, what are your concerns of those on the margins, especially the young people? They might say, why am I fighting this down for, right? They might rightfully identify a lot of the system failings and say, look, there's corruption in the government. Why am I trying to obey the law? I might as well break the law too if our leaders are breaking the law, right? That's what people think.
Yes, and I've been saying that for years, and people just, oh, well, mustn't comment on other people things. But if you're trying to tell me go to school, study, look at a situation happened recently. I'm not going to go into too much details. An organization extracted a woman with 7 children out of domestic violence. So there's a restraining order. So the person had to be moved far away from the particular area they were in. They have a child who's doing FCA, who did FCA yesterday. She has her fears. So the child misses the first couple of days of school during that process, and then she needs to find income to travel to school. That child almost missed the first mock exam. Thank God teacher did whatever. That is, and the child is brilliant. We did the assessment, and the child is extremely, extremely brilliant. Has a bright future through education to be able to break the cycle. And these are the things we tell people: go to school, get a good education, you can break your cycle. How many people find chicken now with bachelors and masters? You understand what I'm trying to say? So when we go to the ghetto and we tell the boys and them, boys, go to school, study, pick up your books and all the things that we tell them. And he could tell you, listen, I didn't study, and you see the boy in your apartment next to me, he studied while we was playing football and he have a master's. What are you doing now? Then they can look and see that politician who has unexplained wealth, or that businessman who has unexplained wealth. These boys and them not stupid. So in their mind, we're selling them lies. We're selling them dreams. That's not reality. So I was so long and I was thinking, if I go and how much chicken I have to fry, how much hours of security I have to ride out of work to be able at minimum wage, thing. So we have 2 sets of laws in our society. That's why I said we need a more equitable society. And the young people who are down there, they are not foolish. They mightn't have all the degrees, but let's say hood sense and street sense, they've already done the calculation. That's why we're seeing our criminals more daring and more younger, because they want the good things in life. Maslow's theory of the hierarchy of needs, it lists all human beings, from Beetham, from Westmoreland, from Goodwood Park, from Palmer's Park, all human beings basically have the same needs. Self-actualization, whatever you want to call it. All right? We all have the same needs. How those needs are met, legitimately, illegitimately, how it is realistically, I believe that if I sit back and wait, maybe my parents will give me something that's not a reality. I then tell myself, listen, I want to do those things too. And even if I work hard, and we must sometimes people just lie about when you work hard, because hard, some of the poorest people in the world show and have been proven in those countries where people working from, where we have children working from 5 and 6 years, in all in Bangladesh and all, they work hard from sun up to sun. So it's not about working hard. And our young people have already realized that the system is pegged against them. It's inequitable. And some of them they will still do it. The parents instill it, but others out of frustration and a desire to enjoy the good things in life, they then tell themselves, listen, I gotta get rich or die trying. However, and so when we are faced with a young man like that, who puts a gun to his face, we say, oh boy, you know, yes, they have this, the devil take over them. But they have already calculated certain things when they meet with their pals and their gangs or whatever it is. And they have a means to an end, which sometimes unfortunately causes the end of other people. And these are conversations. Poverty is not an excuse for crime.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that. But I don't think that anyone can deny that poverty is a contributor to crime. To what extent, and as our society continues, people continue to feel more and more marginalized, the hope for social mobility seems to appear real or imagined, people's reality, people's perception of reality. So even if there's a million ways for me to go, wherever the company is, get a loan, start a business, come through the ranks, blah, 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 be the next Mr. York, the next Mr. Monroe, whoever. But in my mind, I've already perceived that that pathway to lift me is an unsure one. It's not people who don't go on to it. They already have decided in many instances that if they do it the good way, unfortunately, in a society like ours, yes, there are many success stories, but they have already told themselves it's a very slim option, and many don't want to waste their life. As they see it, I'm not saying it's a right perspective. Mm-hmm. I'm saying when I talk to the young people, this is how they're looking at it. And it's not about right or wrong. It is what it is. And until we look to face them, to help them to see differently, not just to see differently, see a reality that it's, don't just sell them dreams and create pathways, right, for them to succeed, whether it's as musicians or whatever skills they have. Until we can do that, there will be a sizable proportion of our young men who have already concluded that there's a particular pathway to get. We could slam them, we could blame them, we could blame them, we could demonize them. They live among us. Somebody put it this way, they don't feel our warmth or connection, they will burn the village. And that's what we have been feeling in Trinidad and Tobago. The burning of our villages by young men and some young women who don't feel our warmth, who are not being, their needs are not being met. The government has it.
Now, one of the things that you pointed out was there was a low voter turnout in the last election, and you think that's because people, to some extent, voters started to lose faith in the system, that the system, if you go through the process, you could get positive change. But others did vote. Do you think, not necessarily wanting to single out a political party, but just the exercise of exercising our rights, sorry with the repetition there, that the population was hoping for change with the election outcome, and there was some amount of positivity right after the election? Do you think that there's still some people that were willing to engage and still had hope that, hey, if we could pick a better leader, things can work out?
I think a lot of people, if I may say myself included, sometimes you find yourself in a situation, boy, so God, things are real bad. It's like you had a man, boy, and a man beating your tail, blazing you, disrespecting you, barking at you, bawling at you, who they're dead, he can't be dead, wherever. Pick your man better. Tell yourself, oh God, I'm tired, I can't take this. And I am not one to stay in abusive relationships for fear of what is to come. I would always make an expect, well, no gamble. So in that context, it's a gamble when it comes to the election. And you have hope. You know, the Bible says hope makes the heart glad. So you hope for something better. And while I have my disappointments, I wouldn't beat myself up for wanting better or wanting change or desiring more in life. I'm not beholden to anyone. You know, I'm not anything till I die except I believe in Jesus Christ. So I could vote so, or I could vote so. Nobody owns my vote. Nobody owns me. So I think a lot of people wanted something different. A lot of people realized that we were on a particular trajectory There were some blatant issues of corruption, which unfortunately is not new to Trinidad and Tobago. We go back to coming up from 1956, Sampy Wallace, DC9 scandal, Chisoro, racing complex. You know, we don't want to talk about them things. Man like Privat, man like O'Halloran coming through the airport, and all of those different things that have come through the year. And unfortunately, corruption is endemic. It has become systematic. It's part of how we live. You know, people look like, you know, it's like, oh, you know, I'm $100 keep that is nothing. Somebody have something for 90,000 in their bag, oh gosh, that is nothing. You know, but however, for every $90,000 on unexplained wealth in a brown paper bag, for the man who was poor and through some contract all of a sudden he had tractor, truck, and he rich. That is money that could have buy them 5-cent tablets in the hospital that you don't get, and your family have to bring with you to get an allergy, or you don't have a little piece for a machine. And so there's a price to corruption. A lot of people don't think about it when they're ranting and raving, and Trinidadians have this conversation that I used to be involved in. It is not who thief. It is not that thief is wrong. You will find mustard, and I'm not of any of them. You will find mustard and ketchup. People say, "Boy, my party is really thief, and the other party thief more." And there's this whole back and forth: who thief more, who thief less. And I ask people, like, thiefing supposed to be an art, you know? Like you say, well, bold faster than this one, Lara back more than this. It's like, if it is okay, as long as I could put it that my party is not as bad as. And I think that's what we've found ourselves over the last years. These choices that we seem to be stuck in, the third party concept has never really worked for us in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of giving that middle voice a chance. So we saw 1981. They now got a sizable amount of votes, but it was not enough to change the government. And then that they only were able to win in 86 when they were able to amalgamate the votes. We saw it in 2007 with the Congress of the People, how much votes they think. So how do we get meaningful change? And if as a citizen you want to be actively involved in selecting who runs your country, a lot of times you might feel I'm stuck between mustard and ketchup. Maybe we need some mayonnaise, I don't know. And that's why I salute people like Vivian Johnson, a guy from Belmont, who went up in Diego Martin South, Port of Spain South, as I think it was, as an independent. So we don't have a lot of those citizens, but it is important that now and years to come, as a people, we do not lose hope.
Now, you mentioned before, sorry, you have something else to say?
No, I was just saying it's important that in the midst of all the hopelessness, we do not lose hope.
Well, I mean, that ties into something that you brought up earlier. And an observation I had throughout the years is how similar our situation now for the last 3 to 4 years, or even for the last 10, 11 years, basically since 2015, how similar it was back when the NAR was voted in, when the oil and gas money wasn't quite there, and what drove the economy wasn't quite working out the same way. And the NAR made difficult choices, and the population didn't fully understand some of the reasoning why it was necessary. And maybe it was how it was communicated, or maybe it was as a young country, we weren't mature enough to fully understand, hey, it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes you have to take better medicine. Now we seem to be primed for another period of needing truly better medicine if we want to get out of it in the long run. Unless miracles happen, or we get oil and gas deals online with our neighbors very soon. To what extent are you concerned that, well, there have been commentary from a whole host of people that the politicians we have today across the board are quite not what we had in the past? If some people look at the past and say, hey, now, to what extent are you concerned that the current politics trying to do something like what Robinson did and the NAR did, it might not be as easy, or it might not work out as well?
Okay, I think that as a people, we need to demand, and I say by demand, better from our leaders. I have particularly not made any comment about this whole Jammeh conversation.
Right.
From a standpoint that I didn't know would have is bad English. There were times in the past when other people said things that I stayed quiet. We have allowed our politics to descend to Jamat, who can't take things, who Zami, and we stay quiet. And we have selective angst. So if I was on yellow and something is said against yellow, I suddenly find my voice. If I am on right, when we as a people going to say, listen, I have a 9-year-old son. His mouth is hot like pepper in a chula. I say, you can't say this. You shouldn't say this. You think I can expose my son to the politicians in this country? People who I tell him he should aspire to be like? When Trinidad and Tobago come together and say, listen, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessa, you have to do better. Dr. K. Christopher Rowley, you have to do better. Mr. Stuart Young, you have to do better. And whoever else. We have denigrated our leaders and say, oh, well, you know, it's so long time we do this, but we need to stop. We need to stop. So our society is taking a battering socially, morally, economically, every which way. And if every citizen doesn't own the process, because I can't tell my neighbor how to reply. If every citizen doesn't own the process, like I was starting a campaign called Let Love Win. I did take it to the last minister. That didn't really flash, but I'm going to do what I can again. It's personal responsibility. Sean, we need personal responsibility. Unfortunately, those that we have charged, we shouldn't have to that extent. So now we find ourselves in a place that we have to do a personal job and some that the state should have done. Own our communities. Cut the grass, clean and come to your house. Maybe somebody said we should do that before, I don't know. Have community cleanup days once a month, every month. Bring in lawyers, bring in people in your village council. Almost, I just have about 4 community centers. I didn't even realize that. Right? Not including Pity Valley. Host activities. You're a plumber, you're an electrician, you're a therapist. Do things in your community. That's what I would like to really push throughout Trinidad and Tobago. But my day-to-day runnings of getting hampers and moving people and housing people is very consuming. But that's what I want to focus. Because honestly, Sean, I give up on our politicians. I give up. My hope has been dashed. You know, the joy that I feel when you vote for somebody and you win and then time passes like, I am buying dreams. I really want to challenge our citizenry. Every time I meet people, what can you do in your community? Let us start a fire and run that fire throughout Trinidad and Tobago, a positive fire where we own our own spaces and see what we can do. If when I go to the grocery, I'm going to buy an extra bag of flour. Each of us, or rice, or whatever, we create food banks in our community. Nobody ain't coming to save the poor people in Trinidad and Tobago. Ain't nobody. We have got to rally and help ourselves and do what we can to help each other to give that sort of emotional support. You know, if you're a man, probably play football in the evening with the boys and them, do something. Because nobody ain't coming to save us. Their agenda, while they pit against each other and try to point whoever out, who this, who thief more, who thief less, who husband was appointed aboard, who wife get money, who get... them things don't fit. Listen, what's the salary infiltrating down to me? But Charlie, that's not infiltrating down to me to help me do nothing for nobody. You understand? I want to ask, what can we do to make our country better? Let us own the process. That's the only way we're going to see the change. That's the only way we can see. SOE, they will just come in, break down the thing. They ain't going to know which people out. They'll be coming in our communities. Let us see how we can give our young men a more thing, mentor them, work with them, be there, show up for each other. Nobody coming to help us. They will be active around elections because they will train you up because they need you as a voter back. They come in for a withdrawal of your vote when they've not made any deposit.
Well, that goes into the last question I want on this main topic here. And I do have a follow-up from one of the things we spoke about the last time you were here. But I have recognized that while we could look at the system and see all the faults, there are individuals who keep things running, individuals in the public service, individuals in the utility companies, individuals in the police service, in public health care, the Nursing Association, he said it plainly. You know, we are being held hostage, referring to those nurses who are potentially taking advantage of things, right? Causing the ones who are trying to do the work to keep people alive, to keep the system running, to have to bear this undue burden. So one of the things that I want to ask you to maybe tie everything together so people understand potentially how bad things are. Because you said we have to help ourselves, right? We can't complain about the politicians and then somehow magically expect them to perfectly find the right solutions to solve everything tomorrow. So for private citizens now to understand, if the NGOs like Is There Not a Cause, and all of the people who you listed earlier, and all of the organizations that are well known, not well known in the country, if for whatever reason they had to stop, can this country survive? Can the people on the margins of this country survive? Because I fear without the efforts, particularly a lot of unheralded effort, there would be a large amount of the population that would struggle and fail to survive in short order. And I don't want to know what that might look like. What would happen?
And I wish government would ask themselves that question. Not only this government, all the government through the year. I was part of that summit in 2009 when Mr. Manning made that speech. My heart was warm because I thought we were going to see a different kind of policy driven. So I want to congratulate Ms. Cindy Heriland, head of the NGO unit. She's been really trying her best to coordinate the NGOs. I can tell you, Alta, that's an NGO, Adult Literacy Program. Habitat is an NGO, right? A lot of groups like Right, Women Rediscover Your Shelter. How many shelters for domestic violence? And we don't have enough. Are run by private citizens, by NGOs. How many children's homes are run by things? How many soup programs, feeding programs, counseling programs, sports programs, skills programs are run by NGOs? So I say, for example, our NGO alone at that, right? We have 3 transitional homes. We're going to open a safe house. We need some funding. We applied to the government since 2024 to get some money for it, right? I just went get a new quotation and I said, what happened? We're going to move forward. We're going to be opening our city outreach center. And I mean, I don't even know, I know real NGOs. I connect with 11 NGOs. And I feel I don't even know 75% of the people on the ground doing stuff, as much as I know. And so all of us are there and we are grinding and we are making things happen. And we're still saying what we're saying. Programs for migrants. You imagine a Trinidad and Tobago. And that is what I want the government to do, the Miss Mohip, and other persons to see the value that we bring to the table, right? I ain't going to be doing no sort of photo ups like I did with the last minute. So I'm going here and going there, and then I ain't getting no funding. I ain't not about that. I've been there, done that. That photo ups time I could be doing what I have to do, looking for money, hosting a barbecue. Think about all of these people that are out there that you see doing stuff short. Having a barbecue, selling hot shop roti tickets, a cake sale, a thrift shop. You think about what they are doing. And look at the reality of what is still existing in our society. Right? Because it can't be the government today. We have to play our part as civil society. But remove civil society. Let me say 1 week we're not functioning. You have the Adventist Association, all the stuff the Catholics do, close down living water, field, all the Pentecostals, everybody, the Muslims, the Hindus, Swaha, Ashja, all the work they're doing, Ishmael Foundation. Remove all of our work for like 2 weeks. Given the reality, I'm talking about open the rose, remove the rose color glasses, see Trinidad for what it is, and remove those players, right, from the scene for the 2 weeks. I'm telling you, it could be mayhem in this place. And we're doing a good job, but we're also creating a buffer that those that have been charged with the responsibility of the government and to provide certain basic social needs, they're not doing it. But the buffer that we are providing has also saved this government and the successive government, because people are very hypocritical and disingenuous. Like if things is the last 9 months, or goes with rosaries in heaven all the time, we've been held for a long while. What is going on? If these people were not involved to the extent that they are involved, helping corporate citizens, yesterday Bankers Association. We have a thing called period poverty in Trinidad. That's something cute. We can't even buy pads. Yesterday, Bankers Insurance, Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago Bank gave us some really nice packages with care packages for women. I saw another group given to a home called Manor. People are doing a lot. Civil society and corporate TT is really reaching out and helping. We don't want to remove it, because I'm telling you, the vacuum, it will be worse than it is now. There are people who depend on organizations, for example, who give them packs from field or whoever, say, oh, people shouldn't have to depend on hampers. I agree they shouldn't have to, but that's all that they have, smarty. Well, let's see what they do. Staff. So it's a very dark. I hate to be so pessimistic, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is the reality, and in spite of the darkness, we are there, ICNTT and many others seeking to be. I mean, like my volunteers are very, very, very committed. But had problems, all kind of problems, they come, they literally hop to see what's happening. Monday is a holiday, they could be home. They're coming also, we can have a brunch so that we can work towards opening our city outreach center and our safe house. And there are many other people committed. They bring their talents, their, whatever they have. So I just want to encourage more people to help more people.
Now, you just mentioned City Outreach Center. You want to open a new shelter, so that's a new facility, a new endeavor.
Two new things. One is residential, right? We have the building structure ready. We've been finding challenges, and we submitted a proposal to self-help in 2024. We will. The grant was approved. We just haven't gotten it as yet. So for that, we need windows, doors, cupboards. We can always finish it. Unlike our other projects where, we were able to have people in the residence and do work while they're there, like do a room at a time. In a safe house, you can't do that, because once it's open, it has to be locked off. So that's the wall alone is $100 and something thousand. So we're working on that. But our city outreach center, we just need the WASA connection, the ICNTT connection, and just one or two minor things. And we hope to open that in the next couple of days. That is where a lot of people right now, Sean, they are homeless. Mm-hmm. They're sleeping here, they're sleeping there. They will be able to come, because our residence capacity is only so much. We have three buildings and they're full, right? But in this city outreach center, you can come during the day, you can get a place to eat, have a shower, you can get clean clothes. We will have computers if you're looking for a job, or if you want to apply for a birth paper or whatever it is. The government have a lot of facilities, but people who are computer challenged, or like me, or you don't have computer, you don't have internet, you can come there, a counselor will sit with you and say, okay, listen, let's just say you want to start a business, right? Mm. And there's whatever micro enterprise projects that the government have. That person can sit with you, help you fill it out, download stuff, upload stuff, whatever it is you need. So we have the computers and all of that stuff. We just need to get some cooking stuff. And of course, we will need ingredients, but we're going to start with a 2 day a week in the first instance. Well, 1 day a week, then 2, then 3. And as we get more volunteers, we're going to give haircuts and all of that. So that is going to be on stream. It's been very behind. I want to thank Digicel and the Latter-day Saints and the Pentecostal Cathedral for their input and their support of that project. That's going to be East Port of Spain. So we're very excited about that. I was on site 2 days ago, working a day running stuff. So we are doing the very best that we can, and our members, minute by minute, we are literally in a chat all through the night, getting reports from people, getting requests, and seeing how we can work with partners here and partners overseas so that we can serve better. We are running operations in Jamaica as we speak. We've got a professional admin team. We are building houses there, and we're packing our 4th container to send out and helping support and different projects that we have there, micro enterprise and different things. So we are doing what we can. And as I said, I know that there are many others doing what we are doing, giving human service. And I just wish that, the state would see the value. I'm not doing it because they are not seeing the value. I am not expecting them to see the value. I'm just saying it would be nice. But in the meantime, we are pressing on, and we're pressing on with passion, because we're asking the question, is there another cause? This is something that God has called us to do. And by his grace, he continues to make a way for us with citizens. So right now, sure, we're running something called a 12-1 project, and we hope to get at least 10,000 people every month giving $100. So 12-1, you give a one-time payment of $1,200 or 12 monthly payments of $100. You give $12,000 one time or 12 monthly payments of $1,000. And so that we could get to a place where we know what our fixed budget is.
Right.
And then we can be able to plan and focus and to be more efficient and to better serve and, you know, buy the groceries wholesale and that type of thing.
Well, I actually brought that up because the last time you were here, we spoke about, I think at the end of the interview, the drive to get our operational and admin headquarters for ICNTT. Right? So, I mean, I wanted to, because I saw it was still active on your social media, trying to fundraise for that, which I think people need to understand. They're trying to fundraise for a headquarters while still opening new facilities on top of the pre-existing facilities and still putting resources towards helping people on a week-to-week basis, month-to-month basis. So we got the headquarters, and we are very happy about that. So the first phase is acquisition. Right. We are in the second phase now, which is refurbishing. So the engineers and stuff, they were there. Holiday was Friday, going through the roof, checking certain stuff and putting together a quotation. So it's the first phase, which was acquisition. Second phase is refurbishing. And then the third phase would be to furnish and to occupy. So we want to give a heartfelt thanks to all of the persons who gave for us to be able to acquire. We thank God, but over the years, all the properties that we have, we never had to do a mortgage. Our groundswell folks came on board, and whether it was people gave $20 during the drive, 20 for plenty, those who put $3.33 in a jar and gave $100 at the end of the trip. We bring it in a way, Sean, that almost everyone can be a part of what we do. We are a grassroots operation, and that has driven us, and we hope to also be an inspiration to other groups to dream big, to just see what the task is, even if you think that you're David. Go after the legal that affect our social space in Trinidad and Tobago. So we're excited, but we are balancing. We're not taking all our energies and say, okay, let's just focus on the building, and which is, we could do. Nothing is wrong if an organization say, listen, we want to take all our resources for this season and fix our headquarters, because once our headquarters is up and running, we're able to serve better. So different organizations would make different decisions at different times. At this point in time, we are, by God's grace, seeking how we can balance it too. So we are in the midst of 12-1, the project I spoke about. It was soft launch at the City Gate and at Faith Assembly. It's my 55th birthday year. Every year I do a project 45, project 50. So this year, the goal is to raise funds to help the city outreach I spoke about. Our headquarters roof, for example, and Jamaica, because we work in Jamaica is still, you know, people think, well, some months pass, it's still very, very dire what's happening there. Well, I want to thank you. We've kept you for quite some time. I want to thank you for being so willing to engage with me on this conversation. I basically, folks, we didn't even really have any sort of extensive sort of discussions before she agreed to the interview. I just said, look, I noticed there's a lot more people that I'm running into that's asking for help, that's begging on the streets, and she immediately just agreed, and we got what we got there. The amount of experience on the ground, I'm very thankful that you're willing to share, because I do feel there are a lot of people, they know, but they don't fully know potentially the scope and the depth of the problem, because we're so caught up with our own concerns and our own issues, which are all legitimate, but to the extent that others are even worse off than us, not just one family or two, but so many. Thanks for joining me, Avenel.
And I want to thank you for making the observation. And if more citizens make the observation, we would reach out and help. And we would also hold those in authority accountable to do something and to see where we are headed as a nation. God bless you. Thanks to all the viewers who've been logged on.
Thank you so much again, folks.
Is this going to be replayed another time?
Yes, yes, it would be. I believe it will be replayed tonight, at the very least, at 9.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much.
All right, yes, so you could tell everyone, you could check out the interview there as well. This is an interview, potentially I might actually ask for it to be posted up in full, something that has a lot of good information. For those who are willing to sit down and watch a long-form interview, they can be very informative. I believe this is one of those. And it's not just ITNAC, Is There Not a Cause? It's not the only NGO around. There are many other NGOs, as Ms. Hector Joseph pointed out, with regards to just about all of the major religions have them, as well as any other potentially non-religious NGOs or maybe not so religious NGOs. I'm sure if you think there's someone in need, you could find a group to help them, and you could find a group whose operations are practically aligned with yours, with what you could volunteer for, with what you could schedule, with what you could donate, geographically might be close enough to you to give some sort of regular support to. It's out there. I guess part of it now is for the wider public to be more aware, because I don't know anywhere near the number of NGOs that Avanel knows and basically just casually tossed out there off of the top of our head. So that was quite heartening to see that there's so many people, from small groups to large groups, that's doing the work. It makes sense. It tells me, all right, this is how we have been surviving. Hopefully we can have an easier time at it as time goes on. But let me just hit the pause button there, because we've been going for about, just over an hour straight. So let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into some news of the day. I'll say this, I am very grateful that the news hit. So actually, as I was speaking about it, the situation was resolved, and I'm very grateful for the timely response of law enforcement in the rescue at sea that happened the night before, to quickly resolve that kidnapping situation that I highlighted yesterday, the night before yesterday. So I'll speak more about that and other situations when we come back after the break. And of course, there's already some comments onto the live stream, so we'll address that. We'll open the phone lines as well. Stay tuned. This is Talking About on WSN, the Content Capital. We'll be right back after this.
Breaking into a senior setup at a young age is great, but I just always remember to stay grounded, keep the right people around me, and just remember there's always more to achieve as a team. My strengths as a wing-back is definitely my ability to get up and down the pitch on both flanks and really impact attack and defence. It gave me a lot of confidence playing in these most recent World Cup qualifiers. It just really reminded me that this is my level, and just to keep raising my bar and standards. This FIFA series is definitely another step for me. I think every camp, every game is just a chance to really establish myself amongst a senior setup and to grow and just gain that much needed experience in men's football. Representing Trinidad and Tobago is more than just football. Really is my roots, a whole nation, my family. Every time I wear that badge, I'm just ready to fight, and I take real pride in it. Yeah, first time in Uzbekistan. It's been a good experience so far, just adapting to new conditions, different environment, but that's what international football's about. So the team is just ready to get the job done, just settled on this game against Venezuela. The mood in camp is very positive. Everyone's hungry. There's a real desire in the group to just go out and put in a good performance, but everyone's also aware of the level the team we're coming up against, so it won't be easy. It will definitely be a fight, but I know everyone's more than capable of this game, and there's a real hunger amongst the group to go out and put a good performance. And a quick message to the fans as well. we know people are going to be waking up early to watch this game, and we appreciate it more than you think. It's important just to get behind the team and really back us through these 2 games, and you can expect the team to give everything on that pitch and really fight for the wins. When I step out on the pitch, I just like to focus, remind myself what I'm playing for, and then just from there it's about giving it all on the pitch and putting out a strong performance.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan, and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
And we're back here and talk about the WSND Content Capital. And before we move on, Avenel messaged me to say, of course, we could release a number. So we'll put it up on the screen, 394-2042. Team leader of Is There Not a Cause? Reach out for those. I believe their main headquarters is in the Port of Spain area, and they do a lot of work in the Port of Spain area. But if necessary, she could also be a good resource if you're not anywhere near and you want to find out what organizations are around where I am. You could reach out to her perhaps, and also with regards to their Jamaican relief efforts, if you want to support that, you could reach her at that number 394-2042 as well. Now, let's move on, of course, because I actually have, I will say, good news with regards to what happened on a kidnapping that I spoke about yesterday. So let's go with the daily review this morning. And like I said, it's good news. There's some degree of irony that the timing of my commentary probably was a bit late with regards to the story, because I do believe the news broke, if not as I was on air, just after I was on air. Various levels of reporting from the daily newspapers, websites broke the news. I think one report was just after 10, and one report might have been around 9, or maybe even just before I went on air, that I failed to get. With regards to the kidnapping of the elderly lady, Tara Palaya, I hope I'm not mispronouncing the name, I potentially am. The reports basically say that, well, first of all, neighbors contacted law enforcement, which was critical with regards to the timing of law enforcement's interdiction in something like this. They have to be made aware, right? From that, the police moved to try to basically respond to the situation. It seems as though this is one area where intelligence actually was well utilized, because based on the reports, it seemed as though they identified the potential egress point from the north coast. I can't remember the specific, Tyrico. And they were basically looking in that direction. Our local radar was able to track, to find the boat that I guess they suspected our citizen was kidnapped and was being transported out of the country on. And the Coast Guard was able to intercept. Now, there's a lot of things I could say very cynically about this result. A lot of things. I'm going to try and not be too cynical, because at the end of the day, for this situation, this is good news. This is something to highlight. This is an example of everything worked, from the Coast Guard to the radar to the police to the citizens being willing to report a situation in a timely manner, because if any one of those things were not in place, did not participate, we probably would not have gotten the result. I do believe the TTPS, potentially the commissioner himself, or somebody else in law enforcement, highlighted the fact that, look, the citizens who reported this in quickly, that was critical to get the ball rolling. But all of the other law enforcement assets were necessary. 11 suspects were reportedly captured, 3 on the beach, 8 on the boat that was carrying the victim. Out of the 8 on the boat, I believe at least 6 were Venezuelan nationals, 2 were TNT nationals. Of the 3 on the beach, they were all Venezuelan nationals. One of the concerns that I would have, now, the police are reporting it that a network was dismantled. And that might be the case. This network might be dismantled, and this is not to take away anything from law enforcement. I would not say now that citizens should breathe a sigh of relief that the potential of this crime, being kidnapped here and being taken to Venezuela, and then demand a ransom for you. I'm not going to say that potential is gone and that we will never see this type of crime again. But this specific network, I mean, when you have 11 arrests, if it's not the whole network, it potentially is a good chunk of the network, right? It's potentially dismantled, or at least significantly impacted. So that's one thing. One of my concerns, however, is the fact that it might now cause people to look at the immigration situation and the illegal migrants and the potential for crime. I will be the first one to say that when you have unregulated illegal immigration, you will get criminals in the mix. You will, or you will get people who can be tempted into a life of crime in order to survive. And we've seen that happen in Europe. Well, and I assume North America, but that situation is a bit more long-term. So it's not necessarily quite the same of when you have a large amount of migrants in a short period of time who the system cannot easily absorb and cannot necessarily monitor who exactly is coming in, right, into the country. You don't know. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a lot of the migrants in order to have a significant criminal element here. And my concern is, unfortunately, the minority will cause us Trinidad and Tobago citizens to now be overly suspicious of the majority, right? Because this is a situation that is relatively commonplace. She had a tenant, and that was how they got access on some level to her property to kidnap her. She was speaking to someone who was her tenant. How many people have Venezuelan tenants? Some of them might be legal, some of them might not be legal, right? And to what extent you might think, oh, I'm trying to help some people out. Venezuela does have a degree of economic, does have a degree of people in even worse economic situations than us in Trinidad and Tobago. So some people might think, hey, I'm trying to help, right? But now, even with the good result, this community in San Juan has been shaken to the core over what happened. And I guess it's one of those things where everybody has the expectation that if the response was not as timely as it was, it could have ended badly. Now, maybe they would have been able to get her back with a ransom paid, but that's not a guarantee, depending on if the kidnappers will accept the ransom that can be afforded, right? But one of the things that one of the newspapers reported was they highlighted 4 different kidnappings with this, 3 other kidnappings with this MO. And it's not as though the kidnappings were big corporate CEOs and bank managers and chairman of the board and stuff like that. No, it was everyday citizens, maybe middle class, maybe slightly better than middle class. I mean, depending on how you view that right now. So more to say, but let's get to the call. I've been waiting. Digger Martin, apologies for the wait. Good morning, caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, Sean, and to all your listeners. First of all, I want to thank the TTPS. I've always come hard at them, but these are semblance of a ray of light at the end of the tunnel. Coordination by the national security apparatus, a rapid response to rescue a kidnapper. But we have to reach the stage that these things are prevented. Now, some of the things I'm seeing, and I've listened attentively to Wayne Sturge, the radar system, the blind spot appears to have been eliminated. There is a coordination. I listened to the new head of the NOC, Johnny Abraham, who on another program indicated all the activities they do, how it was coordinated. And I want people to understand this is a strong point of the day of policing. But he wasn't, he is one of the 2 divisional heads that did not participate in the day of policing. So I want to give him kudos to taking something from a previous administration and reintegrate it into our national security system. The second thing is we are seeing the fruits of changing the leadership of some of the security institutions in Trinidad. The Coast Guard, for example, now they had the boat, they were able to communicate with them, the boat had fuel, and they could have intercepted the kidnappers on the boat. So those are some of the positive things. The second thing I want to talk about, these migrants. Will the PNM and by extension Marvin Gonzalez and Stuart Young take ownership of this problem where you have a lot of migrants and there is a proliferation of criminal activities caused by these migrants? You have a lot of good ones, but as they say, a lot of criminal activities, and the venues are allegedly responsible. So yes, Stuart Young and Marvin Gonzalez take ownership of everything to do with energy. This was their policy that was unchecked and was flawed. They didn't do it properly, and we are reaping the benefits of our PNM policy. Now, this is eye-opening. A lot of people rent their property with 2 Venezuelans, and probably they don't vet them properly, and is a result of their inefficiencies and things like that. They make extra things. I know for a fact in a lot of the HVC houses, Venezuelan people take the government free housing and rent it out. So this is something the HVC is supposed to now vet their apartments, their houses, if they are rented. I live in an area not too far from me. There's a lot of venues. Could I access police to do a visual inspection to find out if these persons are conform to our thing? So there's a lot of work to be done, because it already happened. Now it happened under PNM policy. Now we have to do corrective action, and we have to think it through. We cannot punish the hard-working Venezuelans, but we could deport those who commit crimes. And I suspect, I was listening attentively to a TV host who were basically showing these things, and he said how to identify one of them. I think there was some tattoos around them. I want to know, I haven't seen the tattoo, if that tattoo has any affiliation to Tren de Aragua. Agon. Good morning and enjoy your day.
Thank you, caller. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things, right? I am not someone who is an expert on gang tattoos. That is one way that law enforcement in America identifies gang members. Now, I saw a video from a member, I think he might have been DEA, or I don't think he was local PD, or he was heavily involved in anti-gang law enforcement activities. And he said there's a list of things that they have to prove someone is in a gang, and they need to show at least 3 of those things in that list in order to prove, I assume legally in a court of law, that someone's in a gang. One of those things, I believe, is gang tattoos. There are specific tattoos in America where ordinary citizens, there's warnings to say, do not get these tattoos, because you will be met, if you ever are in vicinity of a gang member who is identified by those tattoos, you'll be met with significant hostility for being someone that is inauthentic to what that tattoo originally means. So I say that to say, it is risky now if we think as private citizens, we're going to know exactly what are gang tattoos, what are not gang tattoos. Just having tattoos does not necessarily mean someone is a criminal, right? There are people with extensive tattoos who are not criminals. It's just one of those things, whether they're Venezuelans, local, Trinbagonians, foreigners, etc., etc. It's a catch-22 because there's many societies where, like in Japan, for instance, tattoos are frowned upon because the Yakuza identified themselves, particularly with specific types of tattoo designs that were made to be well hidden underneath clothing, right? So we can't necessarily, we the private citizen, know with certainty who is or is not, right? It might maybe be something to consider, but then you probably need other cues. Law enforcement, on the other hand, I would hope they would be building a database, because it would not just be random tattoos. Like I said, it would be specific tattoos, specific motifs, specific themes, at times very specific designs that if they make note of, and they could say, oh, he has XYZ tattoo, we've seen this as a significant design on a certain gang that their members wear, or that the members have to identify themselves. So that could be a way to support that, the claim that someone is in a gang. Now, with regards to renting, I want to also warn people, yes, this kidnapping highlights the risk of, well, with the illegal immigrants, you will have criminals hidden amongst them, right? And the majority are not criminals. It might only be the minority, but now everyone is going to be doing the math in their head. How much risk do I want to take? Illegal Venezuelan nationals that are looking to commit criminal activities are not the only criminals that will rent, right? Venezuelans who are looking, not all Venezuelans, I'm not speaking to all, but those who are looking to commit crimes are not necessarily the only criminals who will rent. There are situations with landlords renting to TNT nationals if you're not aware of what it is. Criminals will steal vehicles to commit crimes, will rent vehicles potentially to commit crimes, will rent apartments or houses, right, in order to carry out certain things. Why would they do that? Well, to some extent with regards to vehicles, they're not necessarily going to commit the crime in the rental. Maybe they are, but the point is the rental now is not tied to them so easily, right? More importantly, it's not so abnormal for a new renter to come in and bring in stuff, and then when they're finished, take out stuff, as opposed to if there's a house and there's always a constant flow of new people coming and going, and they're always bringing in bags and taking out bags. At some point, that might start to look suspicious. But if it's a rental, right? And again, it's a way to, yes, it can be traced back, but depending if you negotiate a thing, if you're only paying cash. You know, some people give me a bly, and sometimes we like to skirt the process, circumvent the process, right? There's all of that. More importantly, the landlords don't necessarily know what's going on, particularly if this was done potentially by a real estate agent, a real estate company, some kind of agency. Is there enough checks and balances? Because I did hear about one situation where the landlord had to essentially remove the tenant because it potentially was a situation that could have gotten them into a lot of trouble, right? As well as be unsafe for the landlord. So don't just think, I'll only rent to locals, I won't rent to venues, and I won't have potentially any problem with regards to criminals. No, it's not necessarily the case. Landlords should have some amount of awareness of who they are renting to, right? Regardless of what nationality they have. Now, I'll say this, and this is the cynical part. This kidnapping, I think, was better, the circumstances better facilitated interception. One of the things that people said about the Tade kidnapping down the islands is, why didn't he take the boat? Well, it could have been a situation with range, line of sight, and also even if you detected the boat, then you're chasing. Because the Coast Guard base, yes, it's near down the islands, but essentially you're chasing. I would imagine that the radar, because they were leaving Tyrico Bay, that's the north coast, and they probably were going to be heading west. So, and the criminal network's probably going to learn from this, those who might want to pick up where this network left off, right? The Coast Guard base is well positioned if there's no patrol out at sea, and maybe there was, to intercept. The radar would not necessarily have line of sight issues because they're traveling to some degree along the north coast. I don't think they're going to head straight north to get out of radar range on a pirogue and then try to turn southwest. Whereas the Tade kidnapping, they're right there. They're right there. Venezuela's not far from down the islands. It would have been a difficult situation to track and chase. Now, the real cynicism comes in where, to what degree now should we have higher expectations on the Coast Guard? Because, hey, part of the questions about the American radar is, and Mr. San Fernando, you know, went at me on this, and basically, my argument was, well, somebody felt the need for the American Marines to put a radar in Crown Point, right? Maybe it's the human factor, however you interpret that. Because Mr. San Fernando and others was adamant, we have on radar. And as best as I could tell, performance-wise on the technology, it was comparable, right? There was no scientific reason why the American radar was needed when we had our own radar. So we've seen it now being used to find an individual boat, and the Coast Guard was able to intercept it in time. People are going to ask, well, why can't we see more of this? Do not expect now, oh, we stopped one kidnapping, now we could guard the entire island and perfectly prevent everything illegal coming in. No, that's unreasonable. You cannot expect perfection. But on some level, we've seen the system work. Getting perfect results is not reasonable, but getting more results than just one is a reasonable expectation, right? Now, this to some extent ties into the next topic I just want to mention briefly, because I was not aware of this, so I got wind of this from the local newspaper, so kudos. I think this is the Express. They have a report. The U.S. Southern Command gave out a press release. There are still ships in the Southern Caribbean. The Gerald Ford left, but the other ships potentially did not leave, or they were replaced, right? They were relieved by new ships. But based on what I could gather, the MEU that was operating here is still operating here, because 2 days ago, the United States, they hit another drug boat, this time alleged drug smuggling boat, killing 4 people on the boat 2 days ago. So this, now I'm not sure if it said where in the Caribbean this boat was headed. This is being, I think, framed as a continuation of the overall operation. And the report, our local newspaper, I believe, reported it as Caribbean Pacific, right? So I'm not sure if it is on the other side of Panama or on the southern Caribbean side. But there's still an American military presence still conducting airstrikes, even, you know, even with the carrier out of the way. To what extent is that impacting drug smuggling to TNT? I don't know, but it highlights the fact that, A, they removed their radar, by the way. So whatever that purpose was, potentially wasn't for the interdiction of drug smuggling, right? We still, potentially, we could intercept kidnappers leaving. Can't we intercept drug boats coming? Because the drug boats are happening, the Americans are intercepting. What about us? The radar is working, right? So we have to ask ourselves, is it that the night before last, we fortunately had the right people in law enforcement on duty that night? Because again, if you remove the Coast Guard, if you remove the Coast Guard operators of the radar, if you remove the TTPS response, you remove any one of those 3 things, we might not get the result that we got. I criticize the Coast Guard a lot. Kudos to those officers and enlisted seamen or guardsmen who participated in this endeavor. I am very grateful, right? Now, we have to wrap up shortly, so we don't really have time to take any more, to take too much more calls. I'll just say this, there was another police officer held under PDO utilizing his position to provide access to policing facilities to a member of a gang. I do not know, I haven't gone into the report, so I don't know if this has anything to do with the marijuana that went missing. So we just, the media only got the fact that there was a PDO, and this is the reasoning given. I would imagine it would have something to do with evidence or contraband that a gang member wanted access to, right? If it was intelligence, they could just hand it off themselves. You don't need to give them access to the facilities. And I don't think anybody escaped from a police station. We do have some comments to get to, so let's get to the comments. Now, this one came in at the top of the show, fooling the people, government by distraction. Now it's about no consultation over CARICOM leadership, all the while the kidnapping and murders continue. Hadid says nothing is done to encourage investment. Now, it's a catch-22. I'll just say this, we have to be aware that some of the negative conditions are either inherited or external, but how the government manages the country amongst those circumstances are important. And is it fooling the people by distraction? I don't always like that concept, right? I don't know if that's the case this time. I think the government is probably, politically, they had an issue with CARICOM. It started with Guyana and the threats to Guyana. Then, of course, the American agenda in the region diverged from CARICOM, so our government made their choices for better or worse. Now we reach the point where they're saying we're not going to fund CARICOM as much as we did. I think that last one is somewhat conveniently timed. It might not have been a part of a long-term intention, but when nickel and dime in the population, to some extent, why not shortchange CARICOM as well, right? I think the one real criticism over this CARICOM issue, and the opposition pointed it out, to be fair to the opposition, maybe I'm not totally in line with them. I'm not saying don't do the thing. Explain why. And I believe the opposition leader basically said something to this effect. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why can't you not explain it to us? What is so difficult? Because if you're doing something for a good reason, you should be able to explain it, right? When you break beach and you don't have a good reason, that's when, you get unsure what to say when the dean starts to question you. So let's move on to the next topic quick. So the unemployed has to meet the basic cost of living expenses. This is a comment that the commenter puts regularly, and I don't always highlight it, but I'm going to highlight it. I believe I highlighted this once before. I'll highlight it again today. Because one of the things that Avenel Hector Joseph said is, someone got a minimum wage job, and I'm thinking minimum wage might be $4,000 or $5,000, somewhere around there. No. It's $2,500 or $2,000 and change. And I have no idea how someone is going to survive on $2,000 and change, because I don't know how anyone survives on $4,000. So there is that. And then, of course, the comment after that, and yet they try to justify the exorbitant salary increases when the citizens that we put in place to suffer from hunger and shelter less. So, sorry about the grammar there, but essentially the comment was pointing out, Avenel also pointed it out in her interview, the salary increases. The then PNM government approved salary increases. The one thing I will say is the current government is not looking to reverse those salary increases. However, that is secondary to the people that decided to put them in place in the first place. Either way, we're not seeing any politician in Parliament demand those salary increases be rolled back. And it's not that the money on a state level is significant to make a difference to the national budget. But symbolically, as leadership, it's basically saying, I know you're suffering, but I want more. What does that say? Systems are brilliant, a few loopholes to plug, much more. I think there's more than just a few loopholes. No one must be regarded as less fortunate or fall through the cracks. This can be resolved. Yes, but it takes a lot of work and both political and societal will. Next set of comments, quick. Now, we went through this. Next set of, government should construct, this is the comment in the middle, affordable, readily available housing units. The private sector will do the same. This will help control inflation. Now, the current government, they are looking to have not necessarily affordable housing unit projects. I don't necessarily like the government trying to do it, or at least trying to do it. Also, what the commenter says, the private sector will do the same. I think that things should be put in place for them to do the same. However, Avenel Hector Joseph pointed out, we have low-cost housing, but we have people in such dire straits that they cannot even afford the low-cost housing. What do we do about that? Next comment, quick. This person just came out of the woodwork, did not hear her and saw her for the last 10 years, but now they have answers. Pity, sorry nobody's listening to you. Now, I totally disagree with this comment. First of all, just based on her knowledge of NGOs, just based on her engagement with various corporate citizens or corporate entities and politicians, I doubt this is a case where no one knows her. The scope of her operations, I doubt this is the case where no one knows her. And within the last 10 years, within the last 4 years, I had her for at least one, if not 2 interviews. So I think this is a case, this highlights the point that I was making in part in the interview, and she spoke to this. A lot of people don't know what's going on in this country. Right? She said specific things, and if she was lying, someone's call out specific things that they want to claim she was lying. But I believe everything she said was true, because in part it is very much in line with actual things on the ground that I have seen. Right? There's nothing that I know that could contradict anything that she said. So this is just to highlight the population unaware. Let's go quick. Offer some persons a daily job, but they prefer to beg for sex. Yes, she did mention the fact that there are people who are begging, who want to beg, and they don't want a job. They want to be professional beggars. But not everybody is in that boat. Not everybody is in that boat. So she did highlight that does exist, and I know for a fact that the NGOs, they have things in place to determine who is in genuine need and who is trying to game the system. So be aware that they know and they are actively working to sort this out. Next comment. Is there another comment? I'll just go to the bottom. Consult with the people on the ground that are actually interacting with the persons, and I'll add in need. Do we have anything else? Is that it? Okay, that's it. Right, we have to end things there, because coming up next at 10 a.m. we have Andy Johnson with 10 questions. One of the last remaining, in my opinion, titans of journalism in this country. Hopefully, there will be many more coming up after him, but we need to cherish our thought leaders as they are still willing to participate in the national conversation. So don't miss 10 questions next at 10 a.m. on WESN with Andy Johnson. I'm sure Michael Small. I want to thank all the commenters. I want to thank Digger Martin for calling in. I would like to, again, let's just, if you can't put up Avanel's phone number on the screen there, 394-2042. This is just one NGO, Is There Not a Cause? You could watch the interview where she lists off a set of others. Do your own Google search. I'm sure they'll be easy to find. There has to be an NGO that would be easy for you to work with. If you want to volunteer or give, there will be opportunities for you to do so. And if you know anyone in need, also there will be NGOs that you could potentially find to help those who you know in need. So with that, remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. And this is one of those ways that you remember the each other part. It's nice to be nice. Even if you think a beggar is disingenuous, try not to be disrespectful or insulting towards them, right? Stay safe. Kudos again to law enforcement for rescuing a kidnapping victim on the same night she was kidnapped. I am very happy to see that. Understandably, people are still in fear because it has happened. So it's just a reminder, we have to be vigilant as well, because the citizens that reported it are part of the equation of that successful outcome. But have a great weekend, folks. A nice long weekend. We will see you next week on Tuesday. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan, and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
You would be surprised, a lot of the patients who present to us with infection in their feet, the infection would have started several days before.